welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 472, and today's date is September 20th, 2014, and the title of this episode is the Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Before I get started, I just want to thank those people who donated to the X22Report.com site. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it and very grateful for it. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. We know that the United States, EU, Japan, Australia, Canada have all placed sanctions on Russia. Russia retaliated by saying, listen, we're going to put a ban on agricultural products, and now it really is starting to hurt the European markets. We're seeing that because of these sanctions and because of what Russia did, the countries in Europe like France, Spain, Poland, and other countries in Europe are saying, you know what, the prices are dropping. We have a lot of supply here, and we cannot sustain our livelihood here. And French vegetable farmers are protesting against falling living standards and have set fire to tax and insurance offices in the town of Brittany. The farmers use tractors and trailers to dump artichokes, cauliflower, manure in the streets and also smash windows. And the farmers say they cannot cope with the falling prices for their products. And of course they can't, because as we know, since they cannot sell this merchandise here, this food, what they do is they have a lot of it, and if you have a lot of surplus around, prices start to fall and they can't make their money. And this is exactly what's happening, and it's really starting to hurt the farmers in Europe. Now, we understand that the United States is maneuvering military soldiers into the West African countries, and they're pumping in like $88 million into this area to help out the so-called situation. Well, China is looking at this, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to up the amount of money that we're going to send to these same exact countries. They have upped their amount to $32.54 million, and they're saying that they're going to bring in more doctors and more help into these same exact countries. Now, we can understand why they're doing this, because they have an interest in these countries. We understand they have deals with many of these countries to help with their natural resources. They're pumping in billions of dollars to their infrastructure. They're creating railways there, and now they see the United States coming into this region. And of course, it is a fight to capture these countries. And this is why I keep saying that this Ebola outbreak does look like it was a tactic of the United States central bankers to maneuver soldiers into the area, to pretty much decimate the economies, to have the banks bail them out. And of course, with any type of virus or anything that's going around, sometimes you just can't control it, and sometimes it spreads in other places where you didn't expect it to spread. And this is why we see all these warnings coming out saying that, you know, this could go global, this could spread to millions of people. We had that ship from Liberia that docked in Louisiana, and of course CDC and all of them rushed over there, but they said it was malaria. But again, malaria cannot be given to someone, and you have to be bitten by one of these mosquitoes, or you can get it from a blood transfusion. So we can see that this is really starting to ramp up and build up, and right now we're going to have to watch all of this very, very carefully, because if it still stays contained in these countries and it doesn't spread to any other countries and nothing else happens, then we know for sure this was manufactured. It was all a setup. It was meant to get into these countries. Now, it looks like the ceasefire in Ukraine is pretty much having a little bit of a problem right now, because I posted this on the Sentinel alerts, and it seems that Russia is being blamed for using a tactical nuclear weapon at the Lugansk airport. Now, again, we understand that Ukraine and the pro-Russian people were making a deal. They had the ceasefire. They were putting the final touches on a peace deal. And the question we have to ask ourselves, why in the world would Russia use a tactical nuke in this area, in the southeastern section? It makes absolutely no sense. And of course, Ukraine is out there, and they're saying that, yes, Russia is the ones who are doing it. They are They set it up. Ukrainian media earlier in the day quoted saying that one of the journalists that Russia Army had delivered 2 tactical nuclear strikes on the Lugansk airport from a self-propelled Tylupan 2S4 mortar system, thus causing the Ukrainian troops to leave the area. Now again, it makes no sense. What would be the motive? Russia has pretty much brokered the peace deal. Russia stepped in and said, let's put a ceasefire in place. And right now, why would they blow it up and start something? And I said this in my reports going back, that Ukraine is still trying to start and push this war agenda. The bankers didn't get what they wanted. And we can see already that they're starting to say, yes, Russia's to blame. Russia shut down the MH17. And we know most of this is propaganda. Now, we understand what is going on here. NATO has been infiltrating Ukraine by sending them massive amount of military weapons. Poroshenko was in the United States looking for military assets and aid. There's a bill floating around which would give a lot of military aid and a lot of dollars to Ukraine, and this was all done on purpose, and we can see that all of this is being ginned up to get this war agenda started once again and to demonize Russia. And here we are once again, while Putin is out there, who spoke to Poroshenko, who laid out a peace plan where we haven't heard the United States talk about peace at all. We've never even heard them mention it, or let's have a dialogue. Nothing. All they keep saying, and they only deal in absolutes, is stop, don't do this, we will retaliate, we will crush you. That's all you hear. And we can see right now that, again, the bankers, Kiev, Yatsenyuk, they're trying to push this agenda as hard as they possibly can. And this is not the only thing we'll see, and we'll have to see how Russia reacts. And already they're saying this is absolutely ridiculous. It's complete propaganda. But we're going to have to see as this goes forward and they continually do more and more to try to get this started, what's going to happen. Because I'm reading reports now that the shelling and the firing is not dying down, it's intensifying right now, and it really does look like they're trying to really push this agenda. Now, the NATO chief is out there, and he's saying that this 2-week-old truce between Ukraine and the pro-Russian militants is pretty much in name only. The ceasefire is in name only, and it really is meaningless. Okay, now we understand that the P5 plus 1 deal with Iran and the other nations is still going on. And we see what's happening. Each time Iran meets the deal and meets the agreement, the United States central bankers seem to tweak it or change a little bit and say, you know what, we really want you to do this now. You know what, we really want you to do this now. So Iran had the IAEA come back in and inspect their nuclear program once again. And the UN nuclear bodies report on Iran, including the very recent one, prove that the Islamic Republic has honored the interim nuclear deal it signed with the 6 world powers late last year. The IAEA has been saying all along that Iran has honored the agreement that was made in November. According to a monthly update by the UN Nuclear Agency released on Friday, Iran continues to meet its commitments under the accord. So we can see right now they have done everything the other countries want them to do, but what this whole thing's about is about their banking system. This nuclear thing, this is a smokescreen. They really want their natural resources inside of Iran to be put on the US dollar. The central bankers want to take control of their banks. They want to infiltrate their country. They want to take it over, and they want to use the US dollar as a reserve currency for all oil trade in Iran. And of course, this is a big problem, and this is why that deal that Obama has with Iran is under lock and key. Nobody can really see it. There's only a certain number of people that can see it. It is unclassified, but it's heavily guarded, and you have to view it in a room. You cannot have a camera phone. You cannot take it out. You cannot copy it. You could only read it, and only certain people can see this deal. And we know why, because this has nothing to do with the nuclear deal. This is a complete smokescreen to convince everyone that this is what it's about. In the meantime, behind closed doors, they're trying to get into the banking system, and this is why the IMF has been looking at their banking structure and at their banking system, because eventually they like to get in there. But I don't think Iran's going to cooperate. This is why there's having a very, very rough time getting this deal closed, because every single time the IAEA comes out there, they say, yes, everything is fine. They're doing exactly what you want them to do. We inspected everything. There is nothing more that they need to do. Now, it looks like the corporate media is complaining that the Obama administration is blocking information. So it seems like the corporate media is having a problem with the Obama administration because they're not letting them see certain things that they want to see. Uncovering information that should be available to the public has become increasingly difficult under the presidency of Barack Obama, and this is coming from an Associated Press bureau chief. In some cases, it surpasses the secrecy of George W. Bush. During a joint meeting of news editors, she stated that the same kind of behavior is starting to appear in state and local governments. The Obama administration is stifling public access to information, including keeping reporters away from witnessing any military action the United States takes as it battles the Islamic State extremists in the Middle East. The public can't see any of it, Busby said, referring to the military campaign. Now, of course, they don't want them to see what they're really doing, because they're not fighting the Islamic State. They're fighting the tribes inside the country. They don't want this out there, and they don't want them to really see what the plan is, and that plan is to get Assad. So they're keeping everything a secret right now. They do not want people to know, because as we know, the Islamic State is controlled by the United States, UK, Israel, and other Arab countries. And right now, just like in Libya, like in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Africa, there are certain tribes that are rising up inside the country. These are the people of the country who are taking back their country, and they don't want them to see what is actually going on, because if people start digging deeper and deeper and deeper into this, they're going to finally find out that, wait a minute, they're not really doing what they're saying. They're doing something completely different. Now, what we see now is that the Islamic State released 49 hostages to Turkey. Now, this is kind of strange, because, let me see, they decapitated English and UK citizens, but they let the hostages go. Now, of course, we know these videos were completely fake, phony, and false, and we know that they were not decapitated. We know that who knows where they are. They're probably living someplace else. But we know that this was a complete setup, and this was all propaganda. But what's very interesting, we understand that Turkey has an arrangement with the Islamic State where they traffic the oil through Turkey out to Europe. And we know the United States is not going to stop them, because they can control what the Islamic State is doing. They're using the U.S. dollar just like they want them to. They're selling the oil that they get from Syria to pay for this covert operation right now. And we can see right now that this seems a little strange. And even the news agencies are out there saying that the official explanation sounds a bit too good to be true. A former Turkish diplomat who chairs the Istanbul-based Center for Economics and Foreign Policy Studies, there are some very legitimate and unanswered questions about how this all came about and how it happened, because the Turkish government is saying that they did not pay a ransom, they didn't do anything, and they just released them. And it is very, very odd, but we know the real reason, because they're all part of the system, and I don't really think the Islamic State actually had them. It could have been the tribes of the country that kept them hostage, and they negotiated something where no one knew what took place, and they released them, and this had nothing to do with the Islamic State whatsoever. Now, Russia is still out there, and they're saying that The international counterterrorism operation should be carried out either with the consent of sovereign states or under the UN Security Council authorization. We view other options as illegal and undermining international and regional stability. The UN Charter sets forth the principle of territorial integrity of any state. The UN Security Council maintains international peace and security on the part of all the members of the United Nations. Its powers include the establishment of peacekeeping operations, the establishment of international sanctions, and the authorization of military action. And they're saying right now that if the United States wants to do this, then it has to be with all the countries in the United Nations getting a vote on it, and not the United States just going in there because they want to go in there. And really, the question is, why is the United States going in there? Think about it for a second. Syria has not attacked. The Islamic State has not attacked the United States. What reasoning do they actually have at this point? Syria is taking the matters in their own hands inside Syria. They're bombing the Islamic State. They're hitting them down, pushing them back, even though here the corporate media wants you to believe that, oh no, the Islamic State's so big, they're just spread out all over the place. No, what's happening is Syria is doing the job, pushing them back just with the Free Syrian Army, because actually they're one and the same, really. And we can see that they don't want that information getting out there, so they keep using the propaganda that they're growing. More people are coming into it. They're spreading all over the private Western Central Bank countries, and we're seeing 100 here, 40 there, and this is why they have no numbers, and they're keeping everything confused right now. Now, the European Center for Information Policy and Security, they're saying if this ISIS problem is as big as they're saying, now of course we know what's really going on here, but they're saying if there is a terrorist threat like this, then we have a huge, huge problem. And what they're saying is that the borders are not secure enough. The ECIPS President Baretsky said that this warrants an immediate alert to border police to bring awareness throughout the EU and its allies in a containment to the risks associated with this decision. The president said that the borders are not adequate, protected, and ISIS will exploit new ways to infiltrate the states of the EU and US. Now, we have a problem here in the United States because there's two agendas going on right now. We have one where the Obama administration, for immigration purposes, where he has this executive order that he's going to sign right after the elections, they want to keep the borders open because they want the illegal immigrants continually coming in, because that helps boost Obamacare, gives them work permits, they're the ripe age for war, and they're just keeping this open. Then on the other hand, they're telling us terrorism, that they're coming over the borders, and they're having a problem now because what do? You close the borders? Well, that will hurt his immigration stance, and the whole thing is getting mixed up, and they have one hand terrorism coming over the border, and the other hand keeping them open for illegals, and they have two agendas running at the same time, and it's becoming very, very confusing. But now the ECIPS is issuing an extensive security border alert, and this is going to put pressure on the United States to close the borders. Don't you think it's odd that the borders are wide open with this Ebola epidemic and the Islamic State running wild? Now, of course, people are reporting that, yes, there are lone wolf cells inside the United States. What we are seeing is these are the paid mercenaries that are getting ready to handle the next false flag event. They've been in the country quite a while, training, preparing for what is coming, just like 9/11. It was planned, prepped from the inside, not from the outside. Now, Australia is on high alert because of what happened there, where they had dupes set up to pretend that they were going to do a live beheading. They get these people. They're very easy to convince. They're very easy to sway in a certain way. They actually give them the weapons. They give them everything that they need. The FBI does it here in the United States. But right now, Australia is on high alert following a foiled Islamic State terror plot. And again, this is all because the central banking system is completely falling apart, and they know it. So they really have to make this bigger than it really is. Now, I told you in a couple reports back there is a new terrorism cell called Khorasan. And this is an al-Qaeda cell formed from the Osama bin Laden operatives, and bomb experts have emerged in Syria. So they're saying that this new cell is much worse than the Islamic State. And they're saying the Khorasan is believed to be developing plots against Western targets, especially aircraft, involving jihadists with the U.S. and European passports. And we can see right now they're saying that the Khorasan is trying to link up with another al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, the al-Nusra Front. This would provide a substantial number of fighters to complement the Khorasan's bomb-making expertise. Now, we can see they're really trying to build this up. This cell was developed inside Syria. Assad could be a part of this. We don't know. And again, they're going to try to link this all up once again because they want to make sure that you understand that terrorism, and if they've said this many, many times before, that Syria is the launching pad for terrorism, and we're seeing many different cells come out of Syria, and they're going to use this as the excuse most likely to get in there once they have this major, major event here in the United States, because as we know, the economy is starting to really crumble and fall apart here. Real estate is taking a dive. I mean, we saw Caterpillar 21 consecutive months. The Baltic Dry Index is still dropping, and we see retail being decimated. More layoffs are coming. The stock market is reaching all-time new highs, and what we're seeing is gold is continually being suppressed. So we know something big is on its way, and it's going to happen. Now, what is the time frame of this? I mean, no one can pinpoint exactly when they're going to do this, but it will occur. We all need to be ready, and everyone needs to be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.